Yeah, hi. Hello, everybody. Um, yeah, nice to see you all again. I see some, again, some familiar faces. Um, so yeah, just a quick summary of what the plan is for today. What I want to talk about today is generative, interactive, dynamic NFTs. I'll explain what those means and how you can make them yourselves, where it came from. We'll show some examples of cool pieces from the history of Tezos, early days of Hicketnunk, and then go to. So this is going to be actually, if you've watched the videos of the previous versions of this second part of the creative coding introduction, this one's going to be a bit different and explain why in details later, but we are going to be looking at FX hash specifically. In the past, I was showing how to make interactive NFTs on Hicketnunk / well, then on Teia. And this is still possible, but I'll tell you why later. I chose to focus on FX hash today. So yeah, before we get started, now that you know a little bit about what we're going to talk about, maybe you're not entirely clear what those words mean, but do you have any questions or expectations you want to share? You just want to say hi, that's fine too. Just let's take a few seconds, a minute, to give you a chance to ask anything you need to ask. You can also ask in the chat if necessary. Let me open it. No questions, no expectations, no doubts, concerns. Okay, good. You can always, raise, can always raise your hands. I mean, no, you can't, but I guess you can always unmute yourself and ask a question. You know how it works. All right. So I'm going to start with a few definitions. And one thing I want to mention is that your generative NFT can be any kind of format. So I won't spend much time on the static kind of generative NFTs. That is, if you use the code that you wrote and make an image out of it and then mint that image, that's possible. You can do that. You can use any tool that you want to use, processing, P5.js, Touch Designer, VVVV, whatever. There's tons of them out there. Unity. You can use any kind of tool or coding language to generate an image or a video, a GIF, and then mint that. That's really cool. That's actually probably the most robust way to do it because it will never not run on anybody's machine. And that's not what we're going to talk about today. So what we're going to talk about today is actually interactive NFTs or dynamic NFTs or generative NFTs that are actually small applications that run in a browser and that are written with code, and you mint the actual code. So when you want to publish your work on whatever platform it is, object.com, Versum, FX hash. I'm talking Tezos because that's what I know, but I know there are similar things on the Ethereum side with art blocks and others that also support HTML applications and JavaScript. That's what we're going to talk about today. So there are a few things I will mention, and I'll start sharing my screen later, but first for definitions, it's just me and you. So a generative NFT is an NFT that contains some art that has been created using autonomous processes. This is a very narrow definition or very broad definition, actually, I don't know. But it depends how you look at it, of what generative art is. It's art that is made using autonomous processes. So if you're thinking about it, it isn't limited to computers. Like you can have autonomous processes that are not computer based. Like it just needs to be a process that happens outside of a human. So it could be throwing dice and then drawing positions on a page based on the result of a dice throw. It could be using organic material, mushrooms. That could be considered generative art, though probably would be considered bio art. But yeah, if you take the broadest possible interpretation of generative art, it really doesn't have to involve computers at all. And you can make generative art with a calculator if you want to go digital, but you can make generative art with all sorts of random processes or natural processes that you like. I like to take that broad view because that lets you think a little more outside the box of what most people think about when they look at generative art, which is pixels on a screen made with code, possibly in P5.js. That's the reality of many pieces of generative art today, but it's definitely not limited to that. And there's a very long history of generative art that I don't have time to get into today, but I have provided last time some links, and I will provide more links this time that you can go and check out to read more about that history. I hope that you checked the links from last time, by the way, because there were a lot of things to learn from it. And if you haven't, I'll be happy to share them again. All right. So there is a subcategory of generative art that is called, or that Tyler Hobbs calls, long form generative art. And that's what you think about if you think about FX Hash, if you think about art blocks, a collection of iterations based on a certain code, each iteration being unique. That is what Tyler Hobbs specifically coined long form generative art. I always specify this because I'm not a fan of the term long form generative art, because for me it evokes durational art, which in a way it is, because it takes the time that it takes to mint the whole collection. But there isn't really a much better term either, so I'm a little bit stuck between a rock and a hard place there, not knowing what to call them. Iterational generative art, not that great. But yeah, that is the subset of generative art that we're mostly going to be talking about, though I will show you examples that are not long form. Then you have interactive NFTs, and those are NFTs that change based on user input. And that input could be, clicks, voice or sound from a microphone. It can be changing the size of the window of your browser, for example. It can be all sorts of things. That's interactive. And then a slight nuance to that is dynamic NFTs, which you could say also include interactive NFTs, which are NFTs where the art changes based on external conditions. Actually, dynamic NFTs is a term that is broader than just art-based NFTs. You have dynamic NFTs used in games and stuff like that. I don't know much about that, but they are NFTs in the case of that we're looking at, art that change based on external conditions. So that could be time passing, that can be weather, that can be blockchain activity itself, etc. Some dynamic NFTs are using custom smart contracts that enable the metadata in the NFT to change. This is not what we're talking about. I don't know too much about this. This is a bit beyond my my competence, but just know that it exists. And if you hear the term dynamic NFTs, people might be referring to NFTs with art that changes, or they might be referring to this very specific technical thing where the metadata is changed by a smart contract. And those two can overlap as well. Some artists are able to code their own smart contracts and do some really cool stuff with it. But I'm not going to get into this because, once again, that's not my area of expertise. All right. Let me share my screen briefly. Well, not briefly, for the rest of the session. Let's go live. Is that? Yeah, good. Let it work. Cool. Okay. So, generative art. The definition of generative art that I just gave you comes from this article by Amy Goodchild, which I absolutely recommend reading. It goes into this discussion of generative going beyond just computers. A famous artist, generative artist, though I don't know if she would call herself a generative artist per se. She definitely, I don't think she would call herself a computer artist in any case. But Vera Molnar is an artist who's been doing art with computers, with randomness, from like the 60s. And she's still around, though she's quite old and in a home now. But yeah, absolutely look up Vera Molnar and her interviews and her work. It's fantastic. And yeah, that's just something I want to mention because yeah, generative art goes back a long time. And again, if we take the view that generative art is any art that uses autonomous processes, or art that is generated using numbers or using mathematics. You could go back thousands of years if you think of Islamic art, for example, that is very geometry and math based. This could also be considered generative art. So yeah, it wasn't invented 2 years ago when when NFT started popping up. So yeah. Yeah, the much recommended read. Yeah, similarly, long form generative art. This is the article from Tyler Hobbs that has introduced the concept, and I also recommend reading it. Besides the fact that I disagree with the name long form, actually the article is it's very short, but it's absolutely worth reading. It makes the point that spoilers, it makes the point that there is a fundamental difference, a qualitative difference in the way that generative art is made in this format that is iterations based compared to the way it's been done before, where you would cherry pick the results. An artist would write an algorithm, then it would generate some images, and the artist would pick like, I like this one looks good. In this particular case now, what we mostly see on art blogs, on FX Hash, and so on, is the artwork is generated through some randomness that is seeded. We'll get back to the concept of random seed. That is seeded with the hash of the transaction when the collector collects the piece. This might be a little confusing if you've never been confronted to the concept. I can explain it again. I'll try to explain it better. But basically, every time, a metaphor that I quite like is the metaphor of a plant. So the artist, I could probably start by showing an example. So this is Take Wing by Melissa Wiederrecht. And yeah, you can see all the iterations look different. So if you think about it as a plant, you can imagine that the artist is designing a new species of plant. And it's a metaphor. It's designing the genes of the plant, of this species. It's deciding, okay, this is kind of the range of how big that plant can get. This is the colors that the leaves might have. This is the taste of the fruits. And you encode all of this as the artist into the genetic material of the plant. That's your code. And then you decide, I'm going to produce a number of seeds of that plant, of that new species of plant. Say it's 100 seeds, 500 seeds. And each time a collector comes and buys an edition from you, they're buying one seed. And that's where the confusion starts, because it's different from the random seeds we were talking about before. But ignore that. It's buying one of these plant seeds, planting it, and it gets revealed as this unique iteration or this unique member of that species. So, this one is kind of red, this one is kind of green, and each of them is unique. But you can see in this particular case, and that some species of art might have different, might have more variation between each specimen. In this case, the it's very coherent, which is a quality that I personally appreciate in a generative art collection. And yeah, you don't know what you're gonna get, but you know what species of plant you're gonna get. Say, you buy a lemon tree, you know it's gonna produce lemons. You don't know how many, you don't know how big it's gonna grow. The metaphor breaks if you start talking about that. It depends on the environment. In this case, it doesn't. It just depends on the hash of the transaction when you collect it. So you collect, it gets injected in the blank blockchain. You don't see the other tab. Which tab? Oh, wait, did I only share my... Okay, thanks for telling me. So let me stop streaming. Yeah, okay, share your screen. Maybe I didn't share... I shared only oh, yeah, I shared the application instead of the screen. Sorry for that. So, yeah, this should be good now. All right, so yeah, Take Wing from Melissa Widerrecht. It's a beautiful piece, beautiful collection. And yeah, so you can see that it has these different colors, as I said, and yeah, the consistency. And yeah, some of them have different colors, but they all belong to that family. And yeah, in the same way that each lemon tree is different, but they all belong to the same family, and they're recognizably part of the same family of plants. Does that make sense for everybody? Do you have questions so far? That's like the foundational understanding you need to understand generative art as it lives on FX Hash, as it lives on art blocks and similar platforms. So I hope that's understood. Cool. I see the emojis. Sounds good. All right. So yeah, let's have a look at some cool examples. Why not? Those are some pieces I quite like, because and I selected them because each of them is doing something a little bit different. Take Wing, that we were just looking at, pretty classic piece of generative art. If I pick one, and let me open it full screen. I don't remember if this one we see it being built. I already showed you, I think last time, some piece by Nat Sarkisian. So you know, and probably many of you have heard of FX Hash or projects similar to the projects you have on FX Hash on other platforms before. Okay, it's taking forever to generate. That is not great. But it shows us something, which is that, okay, we had, no, that's fine. Guess it did, yeah, and maybe not the greatest piece to show first because it takes a while to load. But yeah, let me show you Latent Gardens by Pixel Filler. Let's see if this one loads. Yes, great, and it's also full screen, which is nice. So so yeah, what was that about? What was I about to say? Yeah, each of them is slightly different. So Take Wing was, yeah, this sort of quite classic generative art piece. If you look into the code, which you can do, it's quite interesting. It's a little advanced, but yeah, it's taking this random hash and using it to generate a unique composition. This piece, what I really like about it is it's using a very small neural network to generate these images of plants, and so hence the name Latent Garden, because in machine learning you have this concept of a latent space, which I'm going to avoid trying to define. But let me turn off my yellow screen. That was terrible. So yeah. So yeah, you see each of them is unique, and it's generated using a neural network. But typically, you know, the kind of visuals that you get from a neural network, especially a small one like this that can run in a browser, they are going to be kind of blurry, not necessarily that aesthetically pleasing, depending on your taste. And here, what Pixel Filler has done is doing this very neat trick, in my opinion, where they're using they're sort of applying this style on top of the image, and this is actually, these are ASCII characters. So this is text, colored text, but they're using these particular characters that are kind of abstract. That those exist. Like you can't type them on your keyboard, but with the right code, you can access them. And so yeah, this is actually text, which is very elegant in my opinion. And well, not exactly on the opposite end of the spectrum, but a very like opposite end in terms of rendering. Instead of being this very small, elegant text-based thing, we have this very heavy, expensive shader-based piece called Chrysalis. That is a collaboration between Monotau and Arceliath. Arceliath, I mean, they both like absolutely extremely impressive artists. And this, you might have some, like my stream might lag a little bit because this is quite expensive to render. So if I rotate it, I might be lagging. I don't know. It's taking a toll on your computer. Yeah. So I'm gonna zoom in a bit. And yeah, it's a really beautiful piece. And you can see like this. This is not part of FX hash. This has been added by the authors. There's a way that you can change the parameters here. Yeah, this might get confusing, but there's something that FX hash is about to introduce called FX params, which will let you do that, but also mint the iteration. It's different. Yeah, this collective, you were thinking along the same lines. So FX param is different in the sense that you're not tweaking the piece that is already minted. You're tweaking the piece and then minting a piece that has these parameters set. So instead of being generated purely from the hash of the transaction, it's generated from the hash of the transaction plus some custom parameters that you could set yourself. You could still add something like this, might make things confusing, but you could have different parameters that are tweakable from inside the piece and some parameters that are tweakable before you mince the piece. FX param is going to be is coming out soon. It's already in beta right now, I think, and it will let collectors pick like from a menu, like, oh, I want a green one, or I want big circles. Whatever, you could define any kind of parameters as a collector and then mint that. It's going to be interesting. It becomes like, it changes the nature of what we discussed before, the long form generative art thing, like the complexity of long form. And there I am using the term, but the complexity of long form is that you want all the outputs to be good, to look good. It's very hard to make a collection where all the pieces both are different but also look good. You want consistency typically, so that the whole collection looks like a collection, looks like a family. They all look like a lemon tree, but you want like suddenly have a pear tree or nothing, because that can happen if you have random parameters. Like one of the outputs could be nothing, and especially if you have large collections like 500 outputs, it's really hard to make sure that all the outputs look good. It's one of the big challenges. And so with FX params, you won't really have this issue unless some collector decides that they want nothing and they set all the parameters in a way that they have nothing. That's possible. There's also going to be like, yeah, a different kind of dynamic as to, I guess, how collectors decide what they pick. Are they trying to strategically make something that is different from what everybody else is picking? I don't know. And it will probably also be different for collections that mint out in seconds and collections that don't. Yeah, I'm curious to see how the dynamic is going to be for these custom parameters for collectors, but we'll see. So yeah, here you can see really fantastic collection. Everything looks very unique, very different, and yet all belong to the same family. Also visually, it's an absolutely stunning piece. The fact that it runs in the browser is mind blowing to me. Yeah, and it looks monumental. It's absolutely beautiful stuff. I want to see this one. Yeah, just collect. It depends which parameters the artist will enable with collectors. It can still have same kind of complexity. Um, yeah, yeah. On the other parameters, you mean like the ones that are not controlled by the collectors? Yeah, it's true, but it's not as pure. Like if people care about purity, I don't really. But it's not pure long form in this way. If the collectors can, tweak it out of a of a broken state by tweaking the parameters. I mean, you might still have a parameters that is not collector controlled that creates like a nothing piece, like full black, full white, for example. That can happen. So yeah, that's yeah. I was just thinking about an example from one of my collections that might be interesting to talk about. Um, my first collection on FX Hash was carat, 0.1 carat, and it was supposed to be colors, and all of them, all of them are pinking colors, and then you see this, and this is a black and white one. Wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to exist. At the time, I didn't have a way, like when I made this piece, I didn't know how to generate a bunch of thumbnails to check what the output will be. And so I tested it manually, but you can't test hundreds and hundreds of, well, you can, but it takes a while. So I didn't stumble upon this particular case. What was happening is that I'm picking from a palette. First I'm picking a palette, and then from that palette, I'm picking random colors, and some of the palettes have white and have black. But you'd have to repeatedly pick white and black multiple times for it to look black and white, which is unlikely unless until you take into account that there are hundreds of iterations, and so it's statistically there was like a 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 chance that this would happen. So it did happen, but yeah, I hadn't planned for it, which was fun. I mean, I really liked that it happened, and that made the whole thing more special. But it could just like if it had been something different, it could have been like a pure white and then just a white circle on a gray background, which I'm sure some collectors would have found fun or interesting, but I would have felt like I let them down if I did something like that. So yeah, you'll see it happen. Like some artists have offered refunds to collectors if they got a dud, but yeah, and some collectors said no, I like it this way. But yeah, that's part of the game in a way that you're playing when you build those collections. Yeah, this is such a beautiful thing. I'm still mind blown that this collection works in just run in the browser. Just beautiful stuff. All right. And finally, I wanted to show you another FX Hash collection that is very different from all the other ones, especially because I know that, I mean, I don't know exactly who's there today. I know some of you, but I know that always in the residency, in the VerticalCrypto Residency, there are artists who are not generative artists, or who use traditional media, and you're not left out of this. You can also play with your like your art. If you're an illustrator, if you're a painter, you can have you can collaborate maybe with somebody who does code, and that's what Guillaume Cornet has done with multiple pieces on FX Hash, which are all super fun. He's known for doing these very complex, like Where's Waldo kind of compositions with lots of characters. This one's a little more simple in terms of like how dense it is. But yeah, there's still lots of cool details and characters. It's called Road Trip. And so yeah, you have some of them which have cars, some of them have trains, and they're all layers. So all of this is hand drawn, and then they pick the different layers and animate them. You can make static layer compositions, which I find sometimes a bit less interesting, but there are some exceptions. These are very fun because they're layers, but they're animated as well. And yeah, I think there's still a lot to explore in this direction that hasn't been explored. I think Guillaume Cornet is probably the one who has pushed it the furthest that I've seen. But yeah, there's room for a lot of fun experimentation, puppeteering. I don't know, like, just let your imagination go wild. Find somebody to collaborate with if you don't code yourself, and make something fun. So yeah, I'll just can show you some other ones. Just another one so you can see the range. Yeah, that's so cute. All right. Do you have any questions so far before we get into some examples of we're going to get into the history and early examples from the Hicketnung days, and I'm going to tell you a bit about how interactive NFTs started happening on Tezos, at least, but possibly anywhere. I'm not sure. So yeah, any questions so far? We're going to get a little more technical in a minute, but don't be afraid. It's going to be fine. No questions. No questions, no doubts. All right. Good. But if you do, it's fine. It's fine as well. Okay. So yeah, I want to bring you back to a day. To a day in, actually, this is not the day. This is the day. Yes. So the 14th of March, 2021. Do you remember where you were on the 14th of March, 2021 at 11:24? Well, I don't, but I do remember. I do remember one thing from that day, which is this piece, this strange thing. Doesn't look like much, does it? But when I click it, it stops. When I click it again, it starts again. I guess still not impressed. I see. So, what this is? It's called the Magician. It's called the Magician for a reason. It was made by somebody, a French artist called Lionel Radisson. And this piece is impossible. It's not possible. It's not supposed to exist. It's not supposed to work. On Hicketnung, back in the day, so Hicketnung was the first platform, came out of Brazil. I hope you still get somebody to tell you about the history of Hicketnung because it's a fascinating story and I don't have time for it now. But there's actually a beautiful article that was published recently about it, which I will try to share if I remember. But yeah, on Hicketnung, you could publish a wide range of formats, which was cool. You could publish PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs, even PDFs like zins, and you still can. Videos, yeah, all sorts of formats. The text, even like TXT files. So yeah, that was nice. And you could also make and mint this, an SVG. Yeah, the early days of Hicketnung. Yeah, this one is cool. Thanks, GJ Cart, Daniel. So yeah, there's this one, and there was another one that was published, I think, on FX Text. But yeah, anyway, this is a great one too. So this is another format that you could put on Hicketnung, an SVG. Anybody knows what an SVG is? Who can tell me? Who can tell me what an SVG is? I'm sure at least one person knows. I'm gonna pour myself some tea while you think. Try to search your memory. SVG? Anyone? Anybody ever used Illustrator? Still hot. No, nobody knows an SVG. You can write it in the chat as well. That's fine. Okay. Okay. So much for interactivity. So no clue. Okay, that's cool. So an SVG is a vector file. So I see time is typing too late. But yeah, so vector graphics. What are vector graphics? Vector graphics are, yeah, that's a good one. They are a type of image it's an image format that is resolution independent, scale independent. That's defined as opposed to raster graphics, which are pixel based. And if you've ever worked with pixels, there was bitmap images or raster images. That if you try to blow up an image, it gets pixelated, right? Because there's not enough information in there. A vector graphic image is using mathematical formulas to define the shape of the object. So if you scale it up, it's still just as crisp. Even if you don't have extra detail, you still have crisp lines. So that's what vector is. We're not gonna give a course on vector graphics here, but this is animated. How does that work? This is moving. This is interactive. I can click and it stops, and then click and it starts again. When you look at the preview, the screenshot of it, it's just a black square. It was appearing on the feed, and that's a magic trick. It was appearing on the feed of Hic et Nunc as a black square. You click the black square, and suddenly it's animated and interactive. Like, there was no way to make a piece that was doing that on Hic et Nunc at that point. So it was a really cool magic trick. And the way that it was done is using the little known fact, or at least I didn't know, and many people didn't know, that the SVG format that you can embed on the web can also embed HTML and JavaScript. So you can make a vector file that has interactive elements, animated element. You can make animated SVGs essentially, but also interactive SVGs, which is mind-blowing. So mind-blowing for nerds, but I am one. So I was mind-blown. Many people were as well. If you want the full story, actually the first time that Lionel tried this, Makio135 is his handle. The first time that Lionel tried this, it didn't work. And then he talked to the developers, one of them being, or mostly talking, I think, to Andre Venancio, who went on to be one of the founders of Versum, but was at the time collaborating with the creator of Hic et Nunc on coding. And so they implemented support for interactive SVGs. And that was like really opened the floodgates to people from the creative coding scene and generative artists in general, just looking at this and saying, wait, what? I can mint code? Like, I can make NFTs that are code based. I can use P5.js that I already know how to use, and make these cool little interactive programs that run in browser and sell them on Hic et Nunc. That's amazing. And so that really is a significant moment in the history of Hic et Nunc and in the history of NFTs on Tezos, and probably in the history of NFTs globally. And I think that without, I mean, it might have happened later or differently, I don't know, but it was a very special time in history when Hic et Nunc happened. At the beginning, when Raphaël Lima, the creator of Hic et Nunc, was still kind of open to suggestions, when Andre was able to make this happen. And so without this piece, I'm not sure we would have FX Hash. I'm not sure we would have Versum. I'm not sure we would have any of those platforms that allow interactive NFTs to run on their platform. Object as well. People, Marching Square, who went on to fund Object, Andre Venancio, who went on to fund Versum were all sort of like somewhat involved. Marching Square was part of that first or second wave, I don't remember, but like early wave of generative artists who joined Hiketnung because they saw that they could make these interactive pieces. So yeah, it really brought in lots of creative people who worked with code and allowed them to make a living as well. So yeah, I think I can't overstate how important this piece is and how weird it is that it still sells for 49 cents anyway. I own one, full disclosure, but I still feel like for a piece of history like it is, it's kind of weird that it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. Okay, a few more examples of cool interactive pieces. So this one is from Leander Herzog. It's one of my favorites. And the reason I like to show it is because of how well it adapts to different screen sizes. So see, it works in this small square. It might also break your eyes, but that's something I'm willing to live with. So but yeah, warning, seizure warning, I guess. Or people with optical migraines might want to look away for a second. But yeah, it's let's see if I can. Oh yeah, if I do this. Oh, I think view on IPFS. Would that work? Yeah, I want to show the responsiveness. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna take forever to load. Yeah, never mind. So yeah, but you can see it's responsive. But in web design terms, that means that if you change the size of the window, it flows nicely, it adapts, and it changes its aspect ratio. And in this case, keeps a nice ratio between the margins and the content itself. See here, it has bigger margins here. So yeah, very nice aesthetic decisions here made by Leander. This is a piece from Saskia Freke, also kind of early on Hiketnung. And here, yeah, so it also is responsive, and every time, I thought it was press R. Oh, my bad. So you have to press R. So every time you press the R key on the keyboard, it will generate a different pattern. So yeah, see, artists were starting to explore small interactions or do things that you couldn't do with just a video or just an image or a GIF. Not that it hadn't been explored before. There's been web art and generative art and interactive art for decades before, but yeah, doing it on an NFT platform, that was something somewhat exciting and new. So they used the skills they had developed before, or some new artists came up and started doing it for the first time. But yeah, these people, Leander, Saskia, they are veterans already. Gallo, and now I'm going to show you an example of a proper interactive piece. So get ready. So now it's not just about clicking the mouse or pressing a button on the keyboard, but look at this. How beautiful. So yeah, early on, early Gallo pieces were often using what's called a fluid simulation. And yeah, same, can't do that on a video. So yeah, I'm clicking around and moving this virtual fluid. And yeah, so it's still one of my favorite pieces. I really like it. And same, it works on any aspect ratio. So yeah, conceivably put it on a touch screen at home, swipe it around, I think would feel great. This one, weird, because I feel like it has somewhat broken over the years. I feel like it looked better before, but do we have sound? Okay, I have sound, but I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it. So you get the sound of the notification. This is a really cool piece, and it's a piece of web art that existed prior. It's been minted, but I remember seeing it before. But it's such a beautiful artwork. So it's AI generated endless messages of two virtual people, personas, that are discussing, trying to find a time to meet, and they're stuck in scheduling hell, never able to meet because they already have prior engagements. Yeah, it's just a wonderful piece. And in this case, it's also showing something interesting that you can do that you couldn't do with a video. This one isn't really interactive, apart from the fact that you can click to make the sound turn on. Not huge amount of interaction there, but yeah, the one cool aspect of making a program, this autonomous process that generates stuff, is that it can go on forever. So you can have an endless, never repeating piece of art that just keeps generating new pattern over time. And these patterns in this case are text, but they could be visual, and you can use it. In this case, it's beautifully used as part of the conceptual framework of the piece, because yeah, the fact that it's going to go on forever is yeah, just amplifies the emotional impact of the work. So yeah, I'm gonna turn it off because the notification sound is going to drive me crazy. Another artist that I wanted to show, and this is an interactive piece, and I wanted also to show you that. So this is from Hugh Messy. Also wanted to show you that you can use your traditional media skills to to make interactive pieces. So I'm clicking, and it's folding an airplane. But this is stitched. This is a piece of fabric art, and now it's making the plane. And now I can move the mouse to rotate it. How is it possible for generative piece like the last one to be infinite, where it never ends? Yeah, well, if you have a neural network that generates the text, or any kind of autonomous process, in this case, I think it's using some version of GPT-3. Yeah, you can just generate endless, never repeating patterns, just randomly over time. In the same way that if you keep throwing dice forever, you're gonna have, like, well, you have a number of combinations, but you're never gonna repeat the exact same pattern over a certain amount of dice throws, because yeah, it's random. So yeah, that is how it works. I mean, you could also make a piece that repeats after 1,000 years or something, if you so wanted. I really like durational art, and I think that's yeah, I've done some pieces like this. Maybe I'll show you. But yeah, that's how it's done. And yeah, getting into this one broke. Getting into some other things that you could do, and you can still do, I think. I hope. Some of those early experiments kind of, yeah, I kind of broke. I'm going to show you some that did break and explain why. So this was a piece of mine which looks different depending on who's looking at it. So yeah, here I'm logged in, but if I open it in a incognito window, let me see. See, it has a different color. So here we have this the default color, and yeah, here's the version that I get to see. This is because, and that's part of the things that got introduced later after the whole SVG era. They actually implemented a way to use just normal HTML and JavaScript. You didn't need, and you don't need to do interactive SVGs anymore. That's not really a thing that people do, though I guess you could still do it if you felt so inclined. But yeah, you have values that are passed to your code by the website, by Theia or object, and so on, that are the number, like the iteration of the piece, like the unique identifier of the piece, and the wallet address of the person viewing it. as well as the wallet address of the person who made it. But that's something in principle, or who minted it. But that's something you know when you make it, so that's not the most interesting piece of data to get. So in this case, I was checking that data. You can see it. Let me see if I can. Where is it? No. Oh no, what am I? Yeah. I think that's right. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. So here, here you can see. I try to see. Yeah, here we have the parameters that are passed to the object, to the piece, that are my wallet ID and the wallet ID of the viewer. That's also me, so that's the same. That's the same value, and the number of the object, so the unique identifier of the object. So with this data, you could do a lot of cool things, which I have explained in the past. You can watch the videos of the past sessions if you want to get into this. Not the one from last week. I mean the one from last year. But I'm not going to get into this now. For the reason I'm going to explain in a second with some of the next pieces. Yeah, these ones. But yeah, so I'm going to skip this one. This one is sound reactive, so it reacts to your microphone. But last times I tried to show it didn't work because I'm already using the microphone for Discord. And in the rooms is it's a really cool piece by New Yellow. Apparently they renamed themselves as The Sketcher. But it's a collection of illustrations that are interactive, and each of them is a different room in a house, in the house of the creator. They're interactive. You can turn on the lights. It actually makes a sound. I don't know if you can hear it, but just click, click. I think there's another light somewhere. This one? No. This should be another light you can turn on and off. So yeah, interactive illustration. That's cool. And the other thing, oh yeah, that's the one. That's the button here. So yeah, I love actually the fact that there's some kind of very handmade light rendering that is turned on and off. That's cool conceptually. But there's another layer to this piece that you don't really get to see if you just look at it, which is that if you own another one of the pieces from the collection, like if you own the bedroom and you look at the desk, you will see that some object from the bedroom has been added to the illustration. I don't remember which one. There was a tweet that I tried to embed and apparently it didn't work, so we don't have it. But yeah, so it used this data about itself and about the other pieces in the collection to look up via an API, look up which other pieces are also in your wallet and change the output, change the visual of the piece based on this data. This is super cool. This is amazing, but there's a problem. So this was allowed by Andres when they implemented it on Hicketnunk back in the day. It's still possible on Theia, and actually, if you look up interactive objects, this is still the Hicketnunk wiki. That's apparently still on, but there's a Theia version of it. Yeah, you could see the list of APIs that are allowed. And there's a little bit of a problem, which is that some of those APIs don't exist anymore already. This one, it does exist, but it's discontinued. It's going to be a few seconds ago. Oh, well, I don't know. So yeah, if you click on API, it's about to become non-public. The API schema may change without notice and without maintaining backwards compatibility. So that means like any piece that was using this, trying to fetch data from the blockchain via their API, which is It's a tool that you can use to get data from the internet. If you try to use this tool and this tool is broken or it's been taken out of circulation, then your piece is broken. And that's the case for this amazing piece that when I showed it last year at this same, I looked the video today, and last time I showed it, it worked, and now it doesn't. This was a beautiful piece, by the way. So it's from Yazid, who got also a big success later on FX Hash. But early in the history of Hikednunk was doing some really cool experimental NFTs and interactive things, where you were collecting a piece and collecting another, and it changed things that happened. This one is a bit different. This one has code inside of the description, so you can see it here. This is the piece is cold. Sorry, I'm still getting over a cold, so I might cough again. So this piece is called the meta instructions, set number 7, and in the metadata, the description of the piece, you have description. This is a comment. Remember the lesson from last week? So this is a comment. This is not part of the code that gets executed. And then here we have the code. It's in the description. And what this piece does is it has code that calls the API, looks itself up. And if you're nerdy like me, you might be interested to know that at the time you didn't have the unique number of the piece from Hikednunk itself. So he used like some dark magic to try to figure out, which NFT on the chain was it. To find itself on the chain was already a challenge, and then reading the metadata and evaluating the code inside of its own description. So if you don't understand this, it's fine. Honestly, it's not going to get, that's probably as technical as it gets. It's just mind-blowing for people who will appreciate this. If not, don't worry. But the reason I'm still showing it to you, besides the fact that it was incredibly cool, is that you can see it just says fetching instructions, and that's it. It's broken. So if I look at the console, sorry, API says error. Failed to load resource. It's bork. It's broken. If I reload it, maybe I get the actual message. Yeah, there you go. API betical dev blah 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 404. So the API has changed. They removed this particular endpoint. It's done. So a lot of these early experiments are broken now, and so that's the main reason why I decided that I wasn't gonna show you how to do this kind of stuff, even though it's incredibly cool and you can still do it if you use an API that isn't discontinued. Higdex is one such API, as far as I know. I haven't used it in a while, so I don't know. It was made by Marching Square, who then went on to make object.com, and promised to maintain it forever, but who knows. So if you want to make a piece that is going to live potentially forever, or at least is going to live long, you cannot use API calls, because you cannot be sure that the API is going to still be around. To be fair, how long is the blockchain itself going to be around is another question, but it's probably, the life of a blockchain is definitely longer than the half-life of a blockchain is probably longer than the half-life of an API, as you can see, since those are already dead just 2 years later. So, sorry for that. Do we have any questions on what I was just showing? There was more. There's more cool ones that I could show, but I think maybe you want to see some practical things. We're gonna get to the code. Gonna get to the metal. Any questions? Anything that wasn't clear or you're curious about? Anything? Okay. All good. Do you see something that you might be able to use? Anything that you want to try yourself? Cool. So let's get into FX hash. So we talked about FX hash before, and so as you now know, it's it's this NFT platform that has that lets you publish generative art collections. Each piece is unique, and you have to write the code. If you don't know how to code, it's not really the platform for you unless you can collaborate with somebody who does code. Um, this is due to the fact that the pieces, as you may have understood now, are rendering inside of the browser. So it's literally, if I open this one, I think I can actually show you. A sequoia is a beautiful piece as well. If I go there, I can see all the source code for the piece. Some of them you'll be able to read, some of them you won't, depending on if the author let the code readable or kind of hide it, obfuscated it. That's how you call it. This one hasn't been too obfuscated, I think, or not at all. And yeah, here you can see that's all the code that generates. Well, not all of it. There's several files, but yeah, you can see we have the sketch.js. That's the main one, and then there's something palettes that's clearly storing the colors that can be used. Pax.js, I don't know what it is. Okay, I have no idea. Honeycomb.js, something else. So we could, spend the whole day trying to go through this and understand what it's doing. It's a draw code, and then you have p5.js, which is our p5.js library. So it is built in. This means that the whole piece is self-contained. It's stored on something called IPFS. You may or may not know what this is, but it's a peer-to-peer distributed storage system for a distributed internet. It's not blockchain based, so there's still whatever. I'm not. Let's not get into that. But it's not stored directly on FX hash or on the blockchain. On the Tezos blockchain, it's stored on IPFS. But yeah, you see, like, you need to have all of the code that you're going to be using to generate this image. You need to have it inside of your folder where you're going to build your piece. All right. So yeah, to figure out how to build what they call the generative token on FX hash, there is actually the best way to probably the best way to get started is to get a proper tutorial, and we're gonna get that. There are also some cool videos you can find on YouTube. But if you want to make sure that you're doing it right, I can't recommend enough to read the documentation. The documentation for FX hash is the best. It's really good. It's comprehensive. It tells you a lot of mistakes that you should make and people still make because they didn't read the documentation. So yeah, this may look like a lot, and there's a lot more for everything, like including recommendations on how to price your projects. Things that are code of conduct. So yeah, but at the very least, read the publish a generated token page, because it really explains everything you need to know. And here is a visual representation of what I was describing before. This is the hash string of the transaction. That means it's a unique sequence of letters and numbers that gets generated when a collector buys a piece from your collection. It identifies the transaction as a unique event on the blockchain. And FX hash uses this hash. Actually, that's where the name FX hash comes from. It uses this hash as an input to make sure that the output of your code, of your algorithm, the visual output, is a unique, and that's the important word, operative word, deterministic result. So it's not deterministic because there's the hash. It's deterministic because you have to make it that way. What deterministic means is if I put one hash, one specific hash into a piece. Let's go back to this one. Actually, I can see it when I put it in full screen. I can see the FX hash IPFS gateway link, the unique identifier of the piece. I believe that's what this is. And then here FX hash equal, so the hash of the transaction. If I change this number, so let's cut it and then put this random, oops, I shouldn't type semicolons, but yeah, to put a random sequence of numbers, I will get something, and it will be different. If I paste back my original hash, I will get the original image again. And if I reload it, it's always the same. So this is what deterministic is about. It means that from the same input, you get the same output. This is not a given. If we were using a random function, even though computers are typically like not great at making randomness, they're good enough. And if I use the random function, or if the artist, in this case, Pixel Filler, if they used a random function, the one that you find in P5.js, for example, well, the output would be different every time, even though we are fitting it this unique hash. So this is why FX hash is giving you its own particular flavor of random that you have to use, and that will make sure that your output will be deterministically random. And this is tricky. It's like a weight dice in a way. And you can place the weight differently based on the hash, but it's like if you had a die and you throw it and it gives you a 6 every time. It's a random value, but it's always the same random value, if that makes sense. It might be a little difficult to abstract at this point, but all you need to understand is that each iteration, the result that we're looking for is that each iteration of a collection should look this way and this way only, and always this way for every person looking at it. That's very important. Something like what I was showing you before, like, oh, it looks different for each person looking at it, not allowed. You're not allowed to do this on FX hash. Even if you could do it, which now you can't, but some people at some point managed to do that and they got their pieces banned. Actually, I have one in my collection, which I'm very proud of, but it's blocked. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there you go. Undesirable content. So yeah, flagged, loading external resources. You're not allowed to call APIs on FX hash. And you can understand their reasons that when you call APIs, when you call external resources, well, it might break in the future and you don't want that. So yeah, this one, yeah, I think it doesn't even work anymore. But at some point it was blocked, but you could still show it. What it did is like it would show your name somehow hidden in the in the piece. And yeah, now it's just not working at all. So yeah, not allowed, can't do it, don't do it, don't try. You will get your tokens banned and you will have a bad day. So yeah, where were we? So so yeah, if you want to make a generative token on FX hash, you can go and read that whole thing and understand that you need to put this particular snippet in your HTML index and so on and so forth. Understand what features are and how they work. And that's like an object that you have to set, and then you set your values and so on. Here we have this FX rand, which is this deterministic random that we were talking about. So that's how you get it. And and do this. But if you want to skip this, to skip the whole setup, there are several ways, but one pretty convenient way that I know of is to create a sketch on open processing. So openprocessing.org is a great website for people doing creative projects with P5JS mostly. That's also where I run my weekly Creative Code Challenge, which I can only encourage you to participate in. This week the topic is digital organism. Last week it was Sparkle. And I reviewed the submissions on Sunday. I didn't yesterday because I was sick, but I usually do every Sunday. So anyway, on open processing, I'm not, I don't get anything from open processing to say that, but yeah, you can have your collections of sketches that you made and share them with people and like other people's posts and so on, and organize your sketches. But you can also, and that's a cool feature, you can also pick a template when you create a new sketch. And we have like a P5JS starter, interactive, shader template, blah, blah, blah. And you can see here we have FX hash template. So if I click on the FX hash template, I get a boilerplate for FX hash that's all set up for me, and I don't have to do anything. That's great. Just run it, and it's going to run. Hopefully. There you go. So yeah, here we go. We have our piece ready to ready to mint. Of course, you would probably want to make a few changes before you do that. But yeah, once you have this, I think yeah, probably have to save it first. Demo FX hash demo PCA draft. Yeah, won't be listed. Yeah, I don't actually want to show it. Okay. There we are. And now let's see. I haven't really used it myself. I develop locally. But you should be able to download it so you can mint it. Sorry, I should have checked this before. Versioning. Okay. Does it say? Maybe it says it here. Basic template. Once ready, download the project from share icon. Ah, there you go. Okay. Share. Yeah, there you go. So once you have your code done, click on share, then download. Get a zip file. Gonna download it. Okay, and then I can go to FX hash. Go to mint generative token. I have checked my zip file. I'm both coughing for real, and also I haven't checked it, but I trust open processing. Time to mint. Who's authoring the piece? You. Next step, drop your zip file. So I have it still there, so I can just do this. Then I see the name appears here, upload. And there you see, we have our piece here. Here you see you have the current hash. So it always starts with 00, double O, the letter, not the number, and then a random sequence of numbers and letters. We try this the same hash, and then we can check. If I look here, for example, like see those, it's always those same two circles here that appear at the beginning. So yeah, it works with the same hash. I can try a new hash, and now see it starts differently. It's a bit hard to see with this one, but yeah, it looks different. I want to keep this hash for the preview of my project. So yeah, I could say like, oh yeah, this one is the one I want. My generative token works properly. Next step, This is okay. We haven't really gotten into this, but you have to know that when you see a project on FX Hash, let's go back to this one, open project. So when I'm looking here at the gallery on the project page itself, it's not showing me, it's not running. And unfortunately, it's not running like hundreds of versions of this program that is very heavy. It's a thumbnail. This is an image. But it has to generate this thumbnail. First, it has to generate one for the whole collection when you mint it, and then it also generates one when people mint, and that's when it says waiting to be signed. That's part of the stuff that's happening. When you mint a piece from a collection, you won't see the thumbnail. You would see waiting to be signed. So yeah, to generate that first thumbnail. Should have put some honey in that tea. So you can decide to capture a thumbnail after 2 seconds, let's say, and capture from the canvas, or like take a screenshot. This is getting challenging. So what have I forgotten? To be able to test capture. No. Okay, let's do viewport capture. If I do from canvas, I have to tell it the name of the canvas, which we could do, but I'm not gonna bother for now. The P5JS always creates the same named canvas, so you could do that. So here it's gonna try that, and here you see my screenshot that was taken 2 seconds after the sketch started running. So if there was if your sketch takes a while to render, you might want to tell it to wait longer, and because you don't know exactly what the machine is that's running on and how long it's going to take to render, you could use FX preview, which is a function that you put in your code, and you put it when you want the screenshot to be taken. So we could go back to our sketch and say, yeah, we want to run it for a certain amount of time and then stop. So see, if we were there, I would say draw if frame count was superior to 100. Oh, loop. No, wait. Do it like this, because I also want to render to call the FX preview. So no loop stops the draw loop from running. And FX preview. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to save. I'm going to download my sketch again. Oops. Click the wrong button. Replace the old one here. So let's try again. Mint generative token. Oh, it doesn't want to. Can I go back? Let me go back. No. Okay, that's good. I've checked. Time to mint. That's just me. Drop. Upload. Food. Then program trigger. Oh, no, I wrote it with a capital. That's wrong. FX preview. Yeah, we need to do it again. We need to do it again. So do it again. Yes. Okay. There. Reload. We have a question coming up. Load. duck, next step, chromatic, viewport, test capture. So now it should capture after 100 frames. Yeah, there we go. So it has detected the FX preview, and that tells it to capture. If I gave it another trigger, like I said, it's not after 100 frames, it's after like some specific function has finished running, then we could make sure that our thumbnail is actually showing the full version of the piece. This is important for pieces like like these for sure, but also like particularly for things like what Nat Sarkisian is doing, which are these landscapes that take a while to render, like this one. So it takes a while to generate itself. Have to run to a meeting. Bye. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it. Feel free to check the video at the end when it's posted to see the last bits. Yeah, so here you see it's not showing like a half completed thing. Like if we were saying like, oh, after 2 seconds or after 10 seconds or whatever, how do we make sure that on the remote machine where it's running it to capture it, that it is actually done rendering? Well, we don't know, so we have to use FX preview for something like this, and it takes a while. The other thing that you might have noticed is this GPU enabled render instances. So yeah, render instance is this remote machine that it's rendering on. They are virtual machines. I think they use Amazon Web Services probably, if I remember right. So maybe for the GPU they use GPU enabled instances. They're using something else. I remember reading about this a long time ago, but I couldn't recall now. But yeah, if we were doing shader work, WebGL stuff, 3JS, because yes, you don't only have to use P5. You can't. You're not limited to P5JS. You can use any kind of thing, any kind of tool that you would want to use on the web, as long as it fits within the limits of the size of a zip file. You can use it. And so yeah, if you were using WebGL, you would want to to render on a GPU-enabled render instance. I haven't never done a project that did that, so I haven't tried it myself. I see now that it says can take up to 3 minutes to bootstrap. So yeah, these render instances, these virtual machines, they need to start when you call the screenshot, so it takes a bit longer. Okay. Woo. I thought I was recovered enough for this, but obviously I wasn't. But we're almost done. So yeah. Okay. So what's next? Template. Yeah. Oh yeah, there are some useful tools I want to share with you. But before that, maybe we can look at FX Rend, how it works. So yeah, usually if I was doing, how could I show this? What would be the easiest way to show this? I think it would be good if I can demonstrate this. So if I did a random colored background, I'm gonna do something. Actually, I'm gonna make it in hue, saturation, brightness. You don't have to worry about this for now. Color mode, just to make it a little more obvious. HSB, random. We're gonna make a random hue. That's out of 360 and 100, full saturation, full brightness. So the background is going to be color, and it's going to be a random color. So I'm using random, and here you can see. Let's see. It's not working. Oh yeah. Oh, it says trigger preview. That's cool. Yeah, and it stops looping. That's also cool. So I did it wrong. Did I? Or did it randomly pick white? This is a possibility. Very unlikely. No. Okay. What have I done wrong? Background. Oh, I put it in reset. Okay. It's not good. It's like, I wanted it here. Okay. Keep rest, reset. Yeah, no, I don't need the reset thing. I don't need that. Okay. This template can be used, blah, blah, blah. Okay, very good. All right. And you can see here, it's actually embedding P5. P5 min. The last time we looked, it was P5.js. P5 min, it's not different. It's P5 as well. But it is, they removed all the spaces, removed all the line breaks. And that means that it's a little bit smaller. And that's good because that means your project is going to load a tiny bit faster. So if you publish on FX hash, you might want to use FX P5 min, the minified version of P5.js instead of the full version. Just a little parenthesis. Okay, so now we should have a colored background. Yes, nice, cheese. Okay, so we got cheese this time, but now if I load it again, blue cheese. So you can see it's always different. If I use FX rand, actually I don't know exactly how what open processing does for the hash. So let's see. FX. Oh no, I'm doing it wrong as well. It's gonna be red. Yeah. Okay. FX rand times 360. Because FX rand goes from 0 to 1. So you have to multiply him by or like change it for the range that you want. So it's not just a replacement. Like you can't just put it in place, replace it in place from random if you're using random with a range. Yeah, so it is injecting the same hash from what I can. No, it's not. Okay, so it is random. Well, it was weird. Just give a screen twice. So here you can see that it's giving us a random hash every time. It looks like. Maybe repeat it. That's weird. Yeah, okay. So it is a random hash every time that lets us see some variations. But now, if I export it as I use, so yeah, so it is doing the same with FX rand or with random in this case. I'm going to try random again. And every time the color is different. Again, got blue the first time, green. Okay, so you see it's different. Now we're using random, the default random. That's the thing you're not supposed to do. And I'm going to download again. Oh, okay. I will save and then download again. And we're going to try to mint this the wrong way. Save. Load the mint page. Step. I'm going to drop my zip file. Upload. And this is what we want to see. So now if I do retry with the same hash, remember what happened last time? When I did retry with the same hash, I got the exact same result. Here, if I do retry with the same hash, well, nothing happens apparently. Maybe my no loop is throwing it in for a loop. Retry with the same hash. Okay, well, but we want to. Okay, retry with the same hash. It wasn't working the first time for some reason. So yeah, you see, retry with the same hash, different result. That's bad. You're gonna get banned. So if you do this, if you do this and you see that the result is different every time, you did something wrong. You have a random left around, and you need to look at your code and check where you left a normal random instead of using FX rand. So now if I use FX rand time 3060 in this case, oops, again time 3060. I don't really need those parentheses. And we do it again. Download. and then we mint it again, or we haven't really minted, but we start the process again. And now if I do retry with the same hash, yeah, new hash again, retry with the same, now it's the same every time because we're using FXRAN. Does that make sense? Because that's very important. If you're going to do FX hash and you only remember one thing, that's the one thing you need to remember, is that randomness needs to be deterministic. That's the deterministic randomness that we talked about. You can try a new hash to see a different iteration. You can, but every time you retry with the same hash, it should have the same output. It should look the same. The circles should be in the same place. The color should be the same. That's essential. Yeah. So, but now, if you take the stuff we learned last week with like introduction to P5.js, and you take this template and how to download it, how to put it on FX hash, you have everything you need. So say I want to keep this one, that's good. Next step, trigger is FX preview, viewport capture in this case, or we could do the canvas. Let's do the canvas. I'll show you how to do that. So if I look here, I just want to, you don't need to go in the console for that, but I just wanted to remember how it's called, default canvas 0. So that's the name of the canvas. Do I need do I need this? I don't know. Is it a class? What is it? ID. That I forget. I always forget that thing. Okay, I don't need the GPU. We're gonna test it. Yeah, okay, it works. That's good. So yeah, default canvas 0 is the name of the default P5.js canvas. You can change it actually, sorry. You can change it in P5.js, but we don't need to right now. Yeah, we're gonna move through this. And yeah, here, that's another very important step, verifications. Here it's asking you to check that your generative artwork itself is the same as the preview image. So yeah, we can look. Okay, the circle's here, the circle's there. Yeah, it's this. It looks the same. Actually, there's a very tiny difference. That's interesting. I wonder if the render instance has different. What is it? Interesting. Okay, no, it doesn't matter. It's good enough. It's very simple. It's almost exactly the same. It's like just tiny pixel difference here that confuses me. Next step. Yeah, and here we can define number of editions, fixed price, Dutch auction. You can look into this. I'm not going to get into this too much. Like you can look at the how to fix your price documentation. Splits, you can make splits. That's different from collaboration. If you want to do a collaboration with another artist, that's the first step where you have to select whether it's just you or a collab. But here, if you want to make like primary donations, you want to give 10% of your collection to the processing foundation. How about that? You can do it here. So yeah, here you have like a whole list of a whole list. Oh, it's the old logo. I need to tell them to change it. And you can pick like aid for the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, Girls Code, Save Pakistan, blah blah blah. There's a lot more now. That's cool. But yeah, so you have a few. At the beginning, it was just open source projects that people tend to use for FXhash projects, such as P5.js, which is supported by the Processing Foundation. I'm the processing community lead, so like that's my bias. But yeah, P5.js is also very cool and very used on FXhash. 3JS, Hydra are all tools that are used a lot. So yeah, if you want to give a percentage of your primary sales to the foundation or to someone, you can also add an arbitrary. If you want to give me some 10%. You can do that, but yeah, so that's something you can do, and you can do the same for your royalties. So that will be the secondary. So you can split your secondary royalties. And reserves. Oh, interesting. That's new. Or at least that wasn't the thing last time I minted a collection. Okay. There are some more steps. So okay, let's do it. 100. I'm gonna price it at 5. I'm not gonna mint it for real, but yeah, we're gonna give 50% to the processing foundation and nothing to this guy. And royalties between 10% and 25. Let's do 10. Royalty split, nothing, no reserve, and not enabled. Next step. Okay, explore variation settings. So this here defines what happens when you look at a collection. Not this one. When you look at a collection like this, see here, artist disabled the exploration of variation after the minting phase. So I can't see other variations than the one that have been already minted. But if the artists, and that's us in this case, if we say that we allow infinite variations after mint, or we can define a list of hashes that we allow people to see, and you can add as many as you want, I think, but there's probably a limit, but yeah. And you're unlikely to reach it. And yeah, you can do the same for before the mint. So you can either allow people to preview a limited amount of variations, or and that could be just one, like the one that we have here. That means, no, you can see this one and that's it. Or you can allow people to explore before, after. In this particular case, this one is minted out, but you're still allowed to explore infinite variations. And those are variations, I should add, that aren't the ones from the collection. They're just new random hashes that are generated. They're not hashes from transactions, as far as I know. They're just randomly generated hashes. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Let's see. Infinite. Let's be very permissive. Next step. Name of the piece. Well, yeah, that's where you defined your metadata. So we can call it like bunch circles. Token description. What it says on the tin. Collected NFT description. I don't know how many people actually use that. So you can have it. You can have a separate description for collectors once they collect it. Maybe people do it. I haven't heard anyone really talk about this, so I'd be curious if artists actually make use of this. Some tags that you may want to add: circles, color. It's not great or very creative tags, but let's go P5JS. And here you have some labels that you can use. Contains sensitive content, epileptic trigger. Yeah. And if you were using like the piece from Guillaume Cornet that we saw before with the trains and the cars and so on, if you have pre-rendered components, that means like image layers. Not pre-rendered components, but image layers, image composition. Then you need to specify that it is. And yeah, moderators can also change that later if you don't put the appropriate labels. So yeah, so I don't know what the difference is between image composition and includes pre-rendered components. Maybe like if it's audio, like if you have MP3 files or web files included, might be. There's also something for audio. So yeah, you set the labels you want. Then we go to final preview. And here you can see we have, you see it the way people are going to see it. Oh, there's two variations. Oh yeah, because we had, interesting. Yeah, we had selected a default hash, and then we added a separate one. So this is how it looks when you allow a limited number of variations. I thought I'd give it an infinite number whatever. So anyway, that's how it looks when nobody buys your stuff. This is probably going to happen at the beginning. so don't be worried. But yeah, we see a price, 5 tests, royalties, everything looks good. And if we're happy, we click on publish project and it gets added to our created page. And that's it. FX hash. Obviously, there's a lot more to this. I haven't talked about the Webpack template. That is actually what I typically use when I make my pieces. FX hash. Oops. FX hash. Webpack template. Webpack boilerplate. This is not the real one. I think it's linked from here. Webpack. Yeah. Webpack boilerplate. That's the official one. So yeah, this is very convenient because you can use it locally. So I'm gonna show you like one of my latest collection that was published on FX hash. So I have my code and everything in VS Code here, and I can run. I can run a script to run it locally. It still needs to load build start. So yeah, if I click start, it's going to run it locally on my computer. If you don't know what that is, then you stick to open processing for now. But if you've done any web development, you can get excited. So yeah, I'm executing. Okay, but we're still running. Yeah, sure thing, Christian. Happy to help. So yeah, and it opens automatically in my browser. So yeah, I can see it. I have my I had this debug view for frame rate. And yeah, every time I reload, same, I get a new hash that is injected automatically. And once I'm ready to publish, I can run the build script, and I will find in this folder, I think this zipped. Yeah, in this zipped, I will find, well, it's already there because I ran this script before when I published the project. But yeah, I will create a zip file of my project that is ready to upload on FX hash. Very convenient. And yeah, just building it. All right. Okay, so yeah, and you can find the Webpack boilerplate on GitHub, or by reading the tutorial on the documentation on FX hash, which you should absolutely read if you're going to do anything with FX hash. Yeah, some useful tools for you. First one that I've been using for a while is FX Snapshot. That is the tool I wish I had, or maybe not, because that would have prevented me from having the black and white carrots in the first iteration of my collection. This is a Node program, a Node script that generates a bunch of images on your machine locally. So you can preview, you can preview the output of your piece. So if I was to run it on this particular collection, and I did in the past, let me see if I can see it. Yeah, there you go. I have some runs from the past, and here, see, I checked how it looked, and so I could scroll through. Well, it takes a while to display them, but But yeah, here I can see if I'm happy with it or if there are still some duds. This one looked, didn't look too good. So yeah, I went back and changed some things in the script and run it again. So yeah, that's what you get with FX Snapshot. See what the first one looked like. Yeah, too dark and too contrasty. So yeah, that's very, very useful. And then you have FX Studio, which I haven't tried myself. It seems to be a really cool tool that allows you. It's also open source, and what it does is it lets you tweak your parameters, your features, and say that we haven't really talked about features on FX hash. That's a whole other kind of worms. But yeah, you can define like which color palette, blah blah blah, and it will display on the collection itself. But here with FX Studio, it's not an official FX hash product or anything, but you can use it you can use it locally and tell it like, here are some of the variables, some of the features that I have in my piece, and it will create a UI for you that you can tweak, and you can see like, okay, now I want to see just this palette, and generate a bunch of outputs. It can also do the thing that FX Snapshot does to batch generate some things. So yeah, if you want something a little more fully featured, you can go and use FX Studio. And then I have added this FX hash helpers here that might also be useful if you want some custom randoms that use FX hash. There are some other way around it. Yeah, let's not get into it. But yeah, you can also use those. All right, I think I'm gonna open it for questions. We have another 5 minutes, and if there are no questions, I'll happily stop talking because my voice is dead.
I just have one question. Can you just share the sort of notes that you've been doing so that we can reference them later? Yep. Thank you
for
so
sure.
much.
For sure. Any other questions? See one coming up? Maybe. Or not. Okay, anything else you wanted to see that I didn't talk about? It's an endless well. So bottomless well. So I really only scratched the surface of what is FX hash, what is possible. Okay. Bye. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, as I said, I'll happily close it. You can reach me. Well, you know where to reach me. And if you don't, I'm on Twitter at SableRaph. You can find me. See, do I have? No, that's my Tezos address. Twitter. There you go. Okay. I'll put all the links there. Oh, Linktree is probably the right thing to add there. Cool. I see some typing. Yeah, well, I hope that was helpful for everybody.
Thank you so much, Raph.
Yeah, thanks, Raphael. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This was wonderful.
My pleasure. Yeah, I hope
we hope you feel better.
Yeah, thanks. I will try. I hope this made some of you excited to try it. And if you need any help, you can also join my Discord, where we have some very nice people. It's not specifically NFT related; it's more creative coding community. But yeah, we do have an NFT channel. Yeah. All right. Then have a nice rest of your day, everybody, or night, or morning, or whatever. And I'll see you around on Twitter or Discord. You can reach out to me on DMs.
Cheers, Raphael. Take
Bye,
it easy.
everyone.
See you soon.
Yeah, bye, Christian. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.